All right, so today was day 2 of working on my brand new manuscript, WARBRIDE. And it's not like the end of the day yet. I'm partway through the afternoon, but I think I'm gonna wrap it up pretty much now. I might work a little bit more on it, but I think I'm close enough to the end of my actual work day to be able to go ahead and give you a little overall summary of what the day involved for me. As you may know if you've been following the series, I left off on Friday with just like the first round of brainstorming. Now, this project is a really challenging one in that because of previously written material, this is book 2 in a trilogy, and on top of that, this is a sister trilogy to my Bride of the Shadow King trilogy with one particular scene of overlap. And that overlap kind of needs to be the climax of this book too. That overlap scene that happened in Shadow King, it's kind of like a fixed point. Like I have to reach that in the climax of this book. So I have an ending that I have to get to, and then because of where I left off with book 1, I kind of have a beginning, and then I have to figure out how to connect those dots, that beginning to that ending. And it's not been as easy as I thought it would be. I kept trying to write basically a completely different story. And, I mean, like, there's a part of you, like, as an artist that just wants to be like, no, I just want to tell the story I want to tell. But, it doesn't actually work that way. Like, not when there's previously written material and you're kind of committed. So, I don't know. So I spent most of the early morning, like I got up like at 5 this morning because like I'm just so like kind of wrapped up in trying to solve the puzzle of this outline. So I'm just not resting all that well. I'm like, oh, I have to figure this out. So I started work by like 5 this morning, like me down there in my office with my little Christmas tree lights on because yes, I have Christmas tree lights on because they are comforting even in summer. And so I've got my lights on, I got my cup of tea, and I'm like working that 3 act outline over and over and over again, trying to get from that beginning to that ending. And it just like, it kept going in different directions. Like I could not seem to make them naturally flow from one to the next. So I ended up deciding I was going to take a break from just that 3 act structure, even though that's the simplest. And I felt like if I could get that to work, that would be the clearest. I decided that wasn't enough anymore. So then I pulled up an outlining method that I have used for a number of projects over the years. This is I think it's Gwen Hayes is the name of the author. She wrote a book called Romancing the Beat, which basically is like the classic outline for a classic romance novel. And I find this to be a really interesting resource because I write romantasy, so like that core storyline of romance is a huge part of each one of my books, even though it's also, you know, a fantasy and there's a lot of adventure and there's action and whatever. That core outline of romance still matters. So I pulled up that outlining method and basically just started trying to fill in the blanks, like focusing just on the romantic beats and not on the overall story beats to see if that could give me some clarity. And I will say, like, it wasn't the breakthrough I wanted. I think it gave me like a couple of different angles to try to play with that I hadn't thought of before, but it still wasn't like the breakthrough. And sometimes these things aren't. Like again, all of these little outlining methods that I use, they're tools. That's all they are. They're just tools that may or may not be what this book needs. It's all important. It's all part of the development of the book. So it wasn't the breakthrough I wanted, but I spent a little bit of time on that. And once I finished with that, I honestly decided, I'm just going to start structuring a chapter by chapter outline and just see what happens if I start telling myself the story in a simple chapter by chapter method. And that, I will say, combined with the 3 act brainstorming I'd done, combined with the romancing the beat brainstorming I'd done, once I started putting it into more of a chapter by chapter format, I felt like I started to have some breakthrough. Like I just started to be able to see the story. And that's where you get that weird, again, that combination of seat of the pants author versus outlining author, because like, yes, I'm outlining, but this is very seat of the pants. This is very much like just going in a chapter by chapter loose outline like this. It's kind of like I am just telling myself the story and seeing what happens as I'm telling it and just kind of like letting myself relax into what does the narrative flow want, knowing where I need to end up in the long run. And that I felt like I finally had a breakthrough. I've got just one, I think one or two elements in my outline that I've got in bold and red where I'm like, you need to brainstorm this a little more clearly. This is not quite right yet. But I feel like I'm really, really close. Like, I like this outline. I like the emotional angle of it. I like the tropey romance moments are really fun. The overall building of the world, the lore, the building to that big climactic action sequence, like all of that is starting to really feel like, okay, this is, I think this is getting close to the shape of the actual story. So yeah, I think that was what I really needed. It's funny, like Stephanie in the comments on one of the previous videos, um, editor Stephanie Eagleson, like she kind of compared this style of storytelling, like because there's the seat of the pants writers and there's the outlining writers, and she said that one way to describe this kind of writer is almost like it's like you're a gardener. Like you go in and you like plan your garden and you plant your seeds, but then there's a lot of spontaneity as it starts to grow up and become its own thing. And I've never heard that kind of analogy. And I'm like, I think that might be the kind of writer I am. I don't think I'm totally seat of the pants, definitely not. But I'm also not totally an outliner. Like, there is a part of me that's like, I need to get into the story and kind of just let it emerge. So I'm getting close, I think, to where I should be able to start snap drafting this book. The one holdup for me, well, like I said, there's a couple of holdups. There's like two issues that I need to actually come up with clear solutions for before I can start writing, or else I'm just going to be very confused when I get to those points. So I've got two issues that I need to resolve, and then in this manuscript, I mean, in this outline, and then I do need to outline and map out and plan out book three. I honestly do. Like, it's too complicated of an overall trilogy for me to really risk just writing book two and figuring that book three will take care of itself when I get there. I'm like, I need a little bit more specific clarity. Like, I don't think I need to have like a complete chapter by chapter outline for book three, though that wouldn't be a bad idea. But I definitely need a solid 3-act structure before I can start comfortably, confidently rough drafting this book. Still, honestly, I feel like I've made some huge, huge progress today, more than I was expecting to. Like, I was really nervous, I won't lie, after Friday's efforts. I mean, I was so tired at the end of Friday, and then thankfully the weekend was just so busy, like I didn't have much time to like dwell on it and think about it, which is really, really good. That means that my unconscious is doing the processing that it needs to. But, like I said, bright and early this morning, I was up and stressing and like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pull this together? I don't see it. But, yeah, I think I'm getting really, really close. So, I don't know. As of last night, I was telling myself, you're not going to start drafting by the end of the week. But as of this afternoon, I might actually be starting to draft the book by the end of the week, which would be seriously awesome. I would really, really love that. So anyway, that's my update for you. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow, and we'll see if I've made any progress on either those two little issues in this outline or on the 3-act structure for book three. Hopefully both. Until then.